wanna know who I am? Folks call me the Bone Man, ain't my real name, but it's the one that stuck. Tonight on Requiem Radio, we listen close to a silence that won't stay still. A silence so deep it haunted the man who gave the world thunder and music and followed him beyond the grave. Ludwig van Beethoven. This one's called The Silence Between the Notes.
We begin on a stormy night in Vienna. March 26, 1827. Beethoven lay dying in a small, dark apartment in the Schwarzbier house. His body wrecked by illness, his soul restless. He hadn't heard the world in over a decade, and yet somehow he still composed music that thundered across time. Witnesses claimed that as he died, the sky split open with a crack of unnatural thunder and lightning. One woman swore he sat up in bed, raised his fist to the heavens, defiant even in death, and then collapsed, his final breath drowned by the storm outside. It was over, but Beethoven was never one to let silence win. Fast forward to 1840, a quiet, devout young man named Franz Schneider moved into a narrow attic room on the very same street where Beethoven had once lived. The building still smelled faintly of old wood and candle wax. Dust clung to every beam, and yet to Franz it felt sacred. He wasn't just a tenant, he was a pilgrim. He'd come to Vienna to become a copyist. One of those behind-the-scenes figures who preserved music by hand, copying pages note for note, tempo for tempo, and that room had once housed the desk where parts of Beethoven's Missa Solemnis were written. Franz would sit at that same desk, breathing the same musty air, tracing the same notes. But the silence of that room was not empty. The first few nights were uneventful. Cold draft, sure, old pipes, a door that creaked. But then something changed. Late at night, Franz began to hear something strange. Not music exactly, not melodies, more like fragments. A few notes like a question waiting to be answered. Some nights it was a violin phrase. Other nights the shadow of a piano chord, always faint, always incomplete, and always just before sleep. He thought it was in his head, until the night the silence screamed. Franz awoke to a ringing so sharp, so invasive it felt like a blade in his skull. But it wasn't like any sound he'd heard before. It didn't pass through his ears, it vibrated inside his bones. Staggering from bed, dizzy and sweating, he reached for a candle. That's when he saw it. A figure, standing in the corner. Not shadow, not light, a man, disheveled, tall, eyes hollow with suffering, and yet burning with fury. He said nothing, could say nothing. He simply raised one shaking hand and pointed to the desk. There lay Franz's manuscript, a copy of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Only it was wrong. Franz had transposed a passage by mistake. His margins were off, rhythms misaligned, and the figure knew it. Franz tried to back away, but something took hold of his hand, guided it, forced it. He began rewriting the passage, fast, precise, as though Beethoven himself were inside his bones. And all the while, the ringing never stopped. The spirit watched, breathing like wind through a broken window. And when the final note was rewritten, it vanished. From that night on, Franz changed. Neighbors said he was pale, sleep-deprived, muttering to himself in the stairwell, scribbling endlessly by candlelight. One neighbor, a violinist, claimed she heard full symphonies pouring from his room at midnight. Only there was no piano, no violin, no instruments at all, just the music and the ringing. Franz stopped speaking to friends, stopped eating, and one morning he vanished. His room was locked from the inside, the window shut tight, the bed untouched. All that remained was his manuscript unfinished. Except for a single sentence written in trembling ink at the bottom of the page. The silence between the notes is where he waits. Today, tourists visit the Beethoven Museum in the old Schwarzbunierhaus site. Some stand by the replica desk, eager to touch the past, but a few stand too long. They tilt their heads, they listen. And when the world goes quiet, when the museum hushes and the sounds of the street fall away, they hear it. A faint ringing, a single chord, a breath that is not theirs. Some say Beethoven still lingers there, deaf in body but not in spirit, listening for what was lost, still desperate to hear what only silence can reveal. Musicians speak of divine inspiration, of waking in the night with symphonies burning behind their eyes. But maybe it is an inspiration. Maybe it's a man who never heard his own greatest masterpiece. Still composing, still waiting, still listening. In the silence between the notes.
You've been listening to Requiem Radio, where music bleeds into the supernatural, and that was the silence between the notes. Beethoven may have lost his ears to the world, but he still found a way to be heard. Ghosts are kind of like that too. They're supposed to be silent, but sometimes they're not. And maybe, just maybe, Beethoven still listens for us now. Ain't gonna be no more tonight. Y'all rest easy. And don't let the dark drive you home.